Well, hey everyone, and welcome to episode number 103 of the Other Six podcast. My name is Chad Boken. I am your host. Joining me in the studio today for the first time ever, our elementary director, Lindsay Layton. Lindsay, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited that you're here. You told me just a moment ago this is your first podcast ever.
I do listen to podcasts.
You do, but this is your first time ever being on a podcast.
Yep.
What's your favorite podcast? On the spot.
On the spot. Well, I love, if we're keeping it Christian, the Alabaster Jar, Dr. Lynn Cohick.
Oh, yeah, she's great. I love her. She's
The correct answer was the other six, but that's fine
podcast.
too. Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here. Glad you're our special guest today, and also joining us in the studio once again, our lead pastor, Mr. Jim Botts. Jim, how are you today, sir?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here. It's fun to have you. This is gonna be awesome.
This is going to be fun. It's we miss Matt Aldridge. But glad he's getting a little bit of time off, and we're mostly excited that Lindsay gets to be here today.
Yeah, me too.
On the podcast. But before we jump into everything, well, let me ask, how was your weekend, Jim? What had a longer weekend, which is
great.
Nice.
3-day weekend's the best. So we did the Oktoberfest downtown Montgomery.
Okay.
So I had like a classic car thing, and then some not great band that was really loud and making it hard to
shout
stay
out
there.
to the not great band.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Made it hard to hang out. So we just went down to there was a pub. We hung out. The people watching was awesome.
Fantastic.
So I did as
Downtown
much as I
Montgomery.
could while hearing. I mean, it was like feeding back the whole time. Everybody was looking around like, are they going to fix that? So it was like
interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, it was
fun. But it was like an October festival down there. Okay, very cool. Lindsay, what'd you guys get up to this weekend?
So I had a big birthday.
That's right.
Saturday.
Yep. The big 4-0.
4-0.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say it, but thank you, Chad, for saying that.
Sorry, I meant it's the 11th anniversary of her 29th birthday. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
it. Yep. So my birthday was Saturday, but all I did was watch college football.
Of course.
And
your team is?
the Clemson Tigers.
Clemson,
And they won again.
Who did
they play? Was it Wake Forest?
Yeah, 49-14. But we're still number 10. Like, we didn't go up.
Because you have to beat someone.
Right.
Well,
Wake Forest is almost.
You guys are playing Wake Forest, Florida State, all these teams. It doesn't really matter. I mean,
every time you can dig on Florida State.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Auburn had a bye week and we didn't lose, which is really all that I cared about. But yeah.
Yep.
So good weekend, though?
Yeah, good weekend.
Now, your husband, Jordan, the kids, they do anything nice for you for your birthday?
So I got a really nice birthday cake, and that was good. And Jordan and I are actually heading to Charleston.
Okay.
Actually, after work today.
Great.
that's
food.
awesome.
Love Charleston. What a great time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Christy's family used to have a beach house up on Folly Beach right there next
That's
to Charleston.
where we're staying, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful area, just beautiful
it's
area.
amazing.
So we used to go up there. Now, but when we went, it was Christy's family and all of her extended family in this 1,800 square foot house with two bedrooms. And so there was 40 of us in there. and so literally they would just pile mattresses up against the walls, and at night you put the mattresses down or sleep on couches, and some people were sleeping in the breakfast area, and it was just everybody there together.
Hippie commune. That's
yeah,
great.
it kind of had that vibe. And so we pretty soon after we started dating, I did that trip one time, and then they sold that house, and I was so sad. Yeah,
no
I was so
correlation.
sad.
You got to go, and then they stopped doing it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I was there, so that was what happened. But good weekend. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now here's an important question: what kind of birthday cake was it?
It was chocolate and vanilla.
Okay.
But it was from Publix.
Oh, well, then you're
it's from the cold section.
Right.
So it was cold birthday cake. I don't know why that makes a difference.
I think it does.
Thumbs
It's kind of like
up.
ketchup. If I'm gonna pick ketchup, I want cold ketchup, not
cold ketchup.
hot
Cake,
ketchup.
the great uniter.
Yeah,
bringing
absolutely.
people together.
Yeah.
I'm a cookie cake guy. If I have to
I
choose,
do like
I'm gonna
cookie
go with
cake.
cookie cake.
I
But
do not
anyway.
discriminate on
Yep,
cakes.
there you go.
Yeah, me too. If I can reach it, I'll eat it.
Yeah, but
Same.
speaking of cake, I saw some wedding cake this weekend. I was up in Birmingham. That's what we did this weekend. Our friend Harper and Michael. Harper used to be on staff here at Vaughn Forest. Her and Michael officially got married, at least until they realized my ordination's not real.
Boy, are they going to be upset when
Boy, they're gonna be
You've
mad.
been sinning this whole time.
No, I'm kidding. No, it was a beautiful wedding, so we got to go up there and hang out with them. Traffic getting to and from Birmingham was nuts.
Really?
There was Friday. There was a hostage situation on I-65, so we were like, we'll go through Sylacauga. We'll take the other way around. But no, it was good wedding, great reception. Really happy for them. And then yesterday on the holiday, Christy had work. Sorry about that, but the girls and I were at home, so we hung out and just kind of took it easy. And
love it.
It was a really nice holiday. Didn't really.
Me too. Rose
get up
worked all day. I was like, this is great.
It's nice to get to just occasionally not do anything, right? So we did that. We made breakfast, and but it was a good holiday.
Nice.
Grateful for the downtime. But before we jump into our topic for today, because this past week continued our message series talking about oops, did I marry the wrong person? And specifically, we talked about Mrs. Right. And you and I realized very quickly, you and I and Matt Aldrich, 3 dudes talking about Mrs. Right on a podcast might not be the best idea.
Not enough estrogen in this pool.
That's exactly right. And so we need some help. And so Lindsay was kind enough to agree to come on here and talk with us. But before we jump into all that, Lindsay, I want our listeners, our viewers to get to know you a little bit more, because you do an amazing job here with our kids ministry at Vaughn Forest.
Yep.
And so tell us a little bit more about, where are you from? Tell us about your family, about coming on staff here at Vaughn Forest. Tell us your life story. Spin us a yarn.
And the other 6 podcasts is going to be 2 hours long today. Just kidding.
Quickly, tell us your life story. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So I am from South Carolina,
Okay.
Hence the Clemson Tigers. I was born and raised there. I married Jordan as my husband. We've been married for 14 years.
Shout out to Jordan. Great guy.
Yeah, great
Good dude.
guy.
Yeah.
We can go into how we met.
Yeah,
Is
just
that good?
yeah,
All
go
right.
ahead. Tell me.
So we met actually 23 years ago on Sunday.
Wow.
Goodness gracious.
So we met the
That
day.
was either really romantic or super traumatic that she remembers
it's
that.
kind of
Yeah.
funny.
guessing.
So we met our senior year of high school. We
Okay.
went to 2 different high schools, rival high schools, actually. We met through some mutual friends, and my maiden name is Norman.
Okay.
So in high school, everybody called me Norman.
Okay.
So
Makes sense.
as you do.
Right.
As you do. So everybody called me Norman, and he was hanging out with some friends who were really good friends of mine. And so they were like, Norman's coming over. Norman's coming over. He's thinking there's a dude named Norman coming over to hang out.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. No, I pulled up in the driveway and he was like, oh, she's a girl. Like, so we just hit it off right away. Yep. And kind of went back and forth. We love each other. We hate each other for a very, very long time.
Oh, okay. I'm
A little
familiar
back
with
and
that.
forth, really high highs, really low lows.
Sure.
And then after 9 years of that, we kind of matured. I was working in a factory up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, after graduating from Clemson, and he was in the Air Force. He had
Working
joined
in
the
a factory. I'm getting your like Rosie the Riveter vibes. Is that right? Like you were out there like putting studs in airplanes and stuff, or like what was your job at the factory?
So my degree is in industrial engineering.
Okay.
So basically process
She's
improvement.
smart.
That's my world.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that is Jim's world too. Yeah. So process improvement, I was a quality engineer and a lean manufacturing engineer.
All right. That's my world.
Yeah,
I understand some of those words.
TPS,
Yeah.
that's me.
Yep. Six Sigma, all that nerdy stuff. Yeah.
5S.
Yeah,
Kaizen.
5S.
Come on, let's go.
Shout out if you know what they're talking about in the comments. Let me know because I have no clue.
Taichi Ono.
Yeah, so all those Japanese terms, I did all that. And we were just like, okay, listen, we've done the back and forth thing. We're young adults now. We're either going to make this work or we just have to go our separate ways. And so here we are. We made it work.
Wow.
Yeah,
Fork in the road.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
And since then, 3 beautiful
3 kids.
Yeah.
We have a 9-year-old Jude, a 6-year-old Hattie, and a 3-year-old crazy little boy named Bo.
I love Bo. He's
Yeah,
so
Bo's
much
awesome.
fun.
Yeah, Bo thinks he is the CEO of Vaughn Forest. Sorry, Jim. But Bo thinks he lives here.
Yeah.
He works here. Yeah.
That boy can snore too.
He really
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we were doing a staff training a couple of weeks ago, and Bo was in there hanging out with us, and he fell asleep during the training. And so, I get it. No worries,
Sawing
Bo.
logs. It was
Attaboy.
powerful.
Yep.
Yep.
So, that's me in a nutshell.
Now, how did you guys get to Vaughn Forest? Because explain that.
All right. So we're a military family, Air
Okay.
Force. We have lived everywhere. We did 10 years overseas.
Okay.
And we were just kind of at that point where we wanted to live in America again. And so.
Now, where did you guys live overseas?
So we did 2 years in Turkey. Then he did a short tour in Korea. So
Okay.
I came back home and lived with my
He
parents.
like apart from you. Yikes!
For a whole
Ouch.
year,
Sounds
yeah.
like Air Force.
Yeah, it was pre-children though, so that
sure.
was made it a little bit easier. And then we went to Italy for 3 years, Getty Air Force Base, because everybody's like Aviano, no, Getty Air Force Base.
Shout out, Getty.
And then we went to Alconbury, which is in England.
Okay.
For 4 years after that. And
From
then,
from Italy to England. Talk about a food letdown.
yeah,
Wow.
well, and weather,
Weather and
and
food.
food.
Whenever I think of English food, I think brown. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just
I
like,
think the English breakfast.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, why are you eating beans? Stop that.
But the
Anyway.
positive about England was there's no language barrier. So
Right.
that's helpful.
Other than Cockney.
Yeah, other than that. But
So spent a bunch of years overseas, and then
years,
we
all,
want to.
all 3 kids were born overseas,
Oh,
which
wow.
is fun fact. But we we wanted to get to the southeast because
Okay.
him and I are both from South Carolina, and the closest base that we could pick from our list was Maxwell.
Okay.
And neither one of us had ever been to Alabama before. We just put it as our number 1 on our dream
Wow.
sheet, and they were like, "You're going there." So we're about 5 hours from home now.
Okay,
which
that's
is
not
bad,
doable. Yeah.
And then how did you get connected here at Vaughn Forest?
So we, again, shout out to the Facebook military spouses page
Let's
where
go.
every military spouse knows that's where to find the information. You kind of get on there. You're like, where do I go to church? Where do I live? What groups do I join? And Vaughn Forest just kept coming up within that Facebook
Wow.
page. So we said, let's give Vaughn Forest a try.
And the rest is history,
the rest
yeah?
is history.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, Morgan and Adam left.
That's right.
And
You came on our team right about that
yep,
time, and have been just absolutely doing an amazing job.
been fun.
ever
Crushing
since then with
Yeah.
kids ministry, and it's been it's fun to watch you and Kendall kind of the
Oh, my
dynamic
Lord.
duo
Kendall's the
down there.
best,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like anytime I'm like, hey, we need a video to promote this. They're like, we got you, and all of a sudden her legs are sticking out of a candy.
I saw that,
and then,
yeah.
whatever it is. But you guys do an incredible job down there. Now tell me what's some of your favorite stuff? Like, what's your favorite thing to do involving like kids ministry? Talk to me a little bit about what that's like.
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun on Sunday mornings. Just the day, like the Sunday to Sundays, is a lot of fun. But kids camp, nothing beats kids camp.
That's a lot of fun. Isn't
It is a lot of fun, and I never in a million years thought I would be presenting the gospel to
Right.
a bunch of children. Actually, children kind of terrify me most of the time, and so I just think it's just such a privilege to get to see these kids week in
Right.
and week out, and then just to watch their little hands raise
Mm-hmm.
to accept Jesus after this kids camp
Right.
was just
It's so good.
it
isn't
was
it?
so good.
Well, it's amazing to watch because obviously the way you love on those kids, the way they love you. I mean, it's just so much fun to get to interact with that and to see that, to see how God's growing that ministry and all kinds of great stuff happening up there. So thank you for
Yeah.
what you do here, and thanks for sharing all that with
Yeah,
us.
sure.
I'm excited for our folks to get to know you a little bit better. So if you see Lindsay walking around the halls here at Vaughn Forest Church, make sure to go up to her and say something, like, hey, I disagree. I think English food is really, really good. No, okay. But anyway, well, we appreciate you being here with us today as we kind of continue our conversation on marriage.
Marriage.
Yeah. It was so funny. We were at the rehearsal dinner Friday night for Harper.
You did not do that.
No.
Okay.
Her dad comes up to me and he goes, hey, there's a rumor that you're going to be doing the marriage bit from Princess Bride. And I was like, oh, no, sir. It's kind of stereotypical. He goes, oh, good, because I've got a bit that I'm doing. It's got that in it. So it wasn't that he didn't want me to do it because he didn't want to ruin the solemn moment of the wedding. It was, hey, I don't want you stepping on my toes.
Yeah.
And I've got a little bit to do here.
Steal
So
my thunder here,
I thought
buddy.
that was pretty funny.
Wow.
Now, I will tell you the reference that I did make. It was... So Michael's kind of a nerd. Her husband, he would own that. I am too, and she's a big Swiftie.
Okay.
So I put. I was able to work in Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Taylor Swift all in one reference.
Wow, well done.
So I said, hey, Harper, clearly, you're the Juliet to his Romeo, you're the Arwen to his Aragorn, the Princess Leia to his Han Solo, the Taylor Swift to his. Never mind. And so I felt all the bridesmaids like glaring at me, after I
great.
did that. But anyway, it was a good time. So
How dare you.
So speaking of marriage and wedding, we did continue our series this
We
past
did.
week, talking about who is Mrs. Wright. Mrs.
Yep.
Wright. What does that look like in our lives? And so to kind of kick off our conversation for today, the big idea from Sunday was that Mrs. Wright sets a helpful tone in the marriage relationship. So can we unpack this, a little bit more? Why is it that the wife has such an important role in setting the tone in the relationship? What is it about the wife that really sets that tone?
Well, we talked about it on the weekend. We said, so often, more often than not, the wife does set the tone, and so we were like, happy wife, happy, and everybody knows the answer.
Life. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, well, why don't we have one of those for the husband? Well, it doesn't really work the same way.
Right.
So the passage that we looked at is 1 Peter 3, 1 through 6, and the emphasis on the passage with the role of the wives is their conduct is so influential.
Right.
So there's a tone-setting conduct there, and so guys, it's not that guys can't set the tone, that the husband doesn't set the tone or have tone, contribution. He does, but when it comes to relationships, guys are a little more on the tone deaf side at times, whereas women are very they have all kinds of bandwidth there. So looking at tone issues are really, really important, because having done marriage counseling, and you have too, when you do marriage counseling with couples, you find that one of the major issues is the tone. Issues are one thing, but the tone and how they go about it can become the problem itself. And so, that's what was behind sort of.
Yeah, and it is crazy, because I know the times where I've come home and maybe it's not the best tone going, something's happened, the girls have done something. Yep. Like you walk in, you can feel it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You can feel immediately.
It's unreal.
Yeah, call it a vibe check if you want to, but that tone, man.
You ever been like small group, you go to somebody's house, you walk in the door and you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like you don't know they were fighting before you got there, but you can tell when you. That's the power of tone. It really is significant. So that was kind of behind. Like the wife has, I think, a tremendously more influential tone setting power than the man does.
It's interesting. Now, so why is that? Is that how God created it to be? Help me understand that a little bit more.
A number of, I can only guess, but I think is one, more relationally sensitive. Not that guys can't be, but just generally are, and more verbal too. So there's more of a verbal processing thing going on too. So all that gets out, where for a lot of guys it just sits in here and they're like, I really don't know.
So you're kind of getting back to basic design there.
Very much so. Yeah.
I think we're more emotional too. Just
can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, if you have any feedback, chad.book@loveforce.com. So
email me at I don't care. I
don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I do think women are more emotional and have a harder time composing themselves when things
and we've
go
been
off the
saying
rails.
it's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing.
That's right.
And most emotional person I know is a guy, to be honest with you. So it's not like it's uniformly a male female thing, but the tendencies are there, and knowing how the roles work, it's just recognizing this is the tendency.
We're talking broad strokes and how to lead into that.
Very
good.
So with the women, we typically take care of the kids, take care of the house, take care of the logistics of that life, of that daily life. We do kind of shoulder those burdens. So I do think when we do that, it can be easy for men to become complacent. So then we feel like we're in control of everything. And so how do we kind of get back to being the helper without nagging?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
So let's say there's a pie chart of what needs to be done in the relationship, in the home, whatever. The less he will do, the wife's not just going to leave it. You're going to do more. You're going to make sure it all gets done. So he retreats, you advance, he retreats, and next thing you know, you're doing most of the stuff. So there's not much of a dance going on here. It's a little bit more like, hey, you're out on the dance floor. I'm sitting on the side, just sipping a Coke, like, hi.
Yeah.
So how do you get your husband back involved? And I would say from the passage itself, it leans on conduct so much. And so, the passage is dealing with wives and an unbelieving husband. So it's kind of the worst case scenario where they don't share the same value system. In fact, even more so, behind the cultural element here, in the first century, the wife typically would submit to the God of the husband. That's part of your role as a wife, is you submit utterly. And so if you're, but that's not what's happening here. It's the other way around, saying, no, wives are going to submit to God as they dance with the husband and submit. So it's like, whoa, that's a little complicated. And so it is complicated. So the emphasis in the passage is on their conduct, godly conduct. So it's like being what's missing. The challenge is, back to the pie, if you're doing 80% of everything and he's doing not even 20. What can you do? And I would say, first of all, it would be like, do what the passage is saying. Just do the right thing for the right reason. Like, serve God in what you're doing, right? Yeah. You're doing what you're doing for Jesus and not necessarily for the bum who's not doing his part. Right. So it's be the Mrs. Right, so that it can invite him back to the dance a little bit.
Right.
But the thing about the passage and the thing about nagging, we talked about before, nagging is an ugly word. It just is. I think the default to want to make the case, to use your words, to to say, hey, you're not in this. Hey, I need you to do more. Hey, that's important, and you should do that. The problem is when you look at the marriage research and why guys would leave a marriage, it's nagging, because the tone of the nagging. So it's not that, it's a very complicated reality where it's just simply trying to express your needs sounds like nagging no matter what.
Right.
And it's just a lose-lose situation. So how do you express the need? How do you express the invitation for him to join the dance when he's not doing it? And how do you do it without words? So it can be complicated, but I just think don't underestimate the power, and the passage leans on it, of don't spend all your time, effort, and energy on your exterior person as a wife.
Right.
Work a lot on your heart, because that weighs a lot more than you think.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a hard thing. It's easy for me to say, right? I'm not,
Right.
I'm not working on that world.
Well, and I think a lot of it goes back to the motivation behind it, right? Like, are you frustrated with your husband because he's not doing these things, or do you love him and you want him to be more like Jesus? Do you want him to step up and and help lead in the dance, like kind of what we've talked about? I heard Dave Ramsey one time. He was talking about because he used to have the talk show, and man, I used to love listening to that talk show a little bit to make myself feel better at times, because these people would call in and they're like, "Hey, we make $10,000 a year. We've got $550,000 in debt." And he's just
it's
like
the Jerry Springer effect. You look at them and go, "I'm great."
Which you feel bad for those people, but it makes you feel a little bit better. I remember one time this one person called and he was they're like, "So what do we do?" He's like, "Fake your death and move to another country." It was. That's great. But one of the things, this woman called in one time, she said, "Hey, my husband just keeps doing these things he's spending and he's spending and he's spending. He's not paying any attention to it. How do I get his attention?" I've tried to talk to him, and he said, "You're going to have to do something extraordinary." He's like, "So here's what you do: send the kids to go be with grandma and grandpa or some friends for the evening. Light candles, have dinner." Hold him by the hand, look in his eye, and tell him the depth of what you need from him. Like, be honest with him. Hey, this is not that it's changing the environment to help them understand. And again, it's not confrontational. It's not browbeating. I think a lot of guys at times, they know they're not necessarily doing the thing they're supposed to do. And when they hear that nagging, oftentimes it can come across, you feel really guilty. And so what do? You try to shut it down because you don't want to deal with that.
That's right.
But instead, if you know that your spouse is coming from a place of teamwork, we're in this together, I love you, let's work on this.
That's right.
I think that's one way to maybe grab the attention and to jar the situation in such a way to help change it.
That's a great word. Invite him back to the team rather than to do what I want you to do.
Right, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So one of the studies I looked at in prepping for really the series looked at the two biggest questions, one that the wife is wondering about and the one that the husband wonders about, and they have cycles of wondering. For the wife, it's, am I truly safe with him? And then for the husband, it's, am I really enough for her?
Right.
And when he's not doing enough, and you're like, hey, you need to do more, it can trigger that weird thing of, oh, I'm not enough, and inadequacies can come out. And it's like inviting him to the team, to be more in the team, seems like a great way to approach it, especially, I think, candlelight and everything that goes with that. Well, it's a good way to go.
Well, that goes a little bit back to what we talked about last week, why so many men feel the responsibility to be a provider.
That's right.
And have that be the priority over being a love her.
That's right. It's easier. It's more natural.
It is. And so, but I think, again, we're focusing on Mrs. Wright today. I think the important thing to remember is like, hey, like you play an important equal part in this marriage, in this relationship. And so it's important that you be heard, but sometimes you have to check your motivation as to why, but also understand, hey, what's his response going to be? And so understanding those two things, being experts and, inviting back, hey, team. We talked about this all series. We are team, fill in the blank, So I think that's so important. So kind of a follow-up question to that, because again, we talked about the S word, submit, a little bit, and all those kinds of things.
Oops.
What is a woman supposed to do when her husband is not leading as he should? In other words, when he is blatantly doing things that are not honoring to God, how does a wife approach that situation? What should her kind of posture be in that moment?
Well, I'll tell you that there's no easy answer. It's not like, hey, here's your formula, do these things and everything will be better. It'll feel better, work better, and be better. There really isn't an easy answer. It's not by accident that the passage in front of the passage that we looked at, 1 Peter 3 is the wife's role, but it begins with the word likewise. So it's obviously connecting from what came before. So 1 Peter 2, verses 21 to 25 refers to the example of Jesus. So when we look at the example of Jesus, which the wife is supposed to sort of exemplify in her own way in the marriage relationship, listen to this example. For to this you've been called, this 1 Peter 2:21, Christ also suffered for you, leaving an example that you might follow in his steps. So with the wife connection, follow in these steps. He committed no sin, neither was there any deceit in his mouth. When he was reviled, he did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but he continued entrusting himself to the one who judges justly. He kept surrendering himself to God. This is for God, to God, for God, in the suffering. He himself bore our sins in his body on the cross, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. By his wounds we've been healed. For you were straying like sheep, but now you've returned to the shepherd and overseers of your souls. Likewise, wives. So Jesus surrendered to the will of God in very difficult and harsh environments. That's an example for wives to do, to follow in his steps. Now, that doesn't mean that the abuse that Jesus suffered in the end of 1 Peter 2 means that wives should just suffer abuse from their husbands.
That's exactly
and
right.
don't do anything. Keep your mouth shut. That's not what we're saying.
Right.
What the passage is saying is your ultimate surrender is to God. Your ultimate submission is to God. If you submit to God, it'll show up in your life to your husband. But if you submit to your husband, not to God, that's backwards. And that's where, so I would just say if there's verbal or physical abuse happening in any way, you need to let someone know. And you need to get some advice on protection for yourself and your family.
Yeah, when we talk about, the idea of submission versus not, we're talking about nominal, normative.
Normal.
And it's always interesting to me, people, in marriage relationships, when they go through tough times, I think a lot of times they can feel like, oh my gosh, no one else in the world is going through the things that we're going through. And again, yes, they are. Like that's it. That's why we have the marriage mentor stuff coming up. And
exactly
all that.
right.
But I always think it's worth repeating what you just said there. There are extreme examples of abuse, verbal, physical, all that. That's not what we're talking. If you are going through that, you go talk to a pastor.
That's right.
You call someone who can help. That's super important.
Yep.
Lindsay, I'd be interested to get your opinion, and certainly we know that Jordan it exemplifies what it means to be an excellent husband.
He's the best. Yeah.
Yep. But has there ever been any of those times where you've struggled with this, and what is your we don't want just Jim and I be the only ones talking about this. I would love to hear your thoughts on how do you let your dance partner lead? What are some ways when maybe it's like, oh gosh, I don't know if that's the right thing, because we've all had that happen in marriage, right? So what's been your experience with that?
So Jordan and I kind of have an interesting, when we got married, he was a believer and I was not.
Interesting.
So we were the unyoked couple. And so this whole idea of biblical submission was foreign to me. I would read it and be like, roll my eyes and,
Totally.
right. So that's kind of where I was. And so because of that, I was the quarrelsome wife. Admittedly. So when our time in Turkey is where I found Jesus and surrendered my life to Jesus. Funnily enough, we were stationed at Incirlik Air Force Base, which is about 30-40 minutes from Tarsus. So Jesus brought me all the way to where Paul was born to surrender my life to him. And so that's kind of
story.
That's great.
And we had been married, when we got our orders there, we had only been married 6 months. And Jordan said, he got the orders, he came home and he said, hey, I got to move to Turkey. Guys, I could not even point to Turkey on a map. I love math, geography is not my subject.
It's right next to chicken.
Right. So I was just like, Turkey what? I don't, what do they speak? I have no idea about their culture, all this. He said, you can come with me and we'll be there for 2 years. Or he said, I can go by myself, but I'll be there for 18 months. And we hadn't even been married a year. And again, I was in my career, trying to climb that corporate ladder. And that's my identity was really wrapped up in that and my career. And I had no identity in Christ. And so I thought, well, it's just 2 years. We'll come back to the States and I'll just plug right back in. And so we went and it was life-changing. And that's where I kind of started learning about the Bible, learning what it means to follow Jesus and have a relationship with that. And I think that's where Now, I wasn't perfect. I'm still not perfect. I can still be the quarrelsome wife. Just ask Jordan.
I thought I saw Jordan up on his roof the other day. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Right, catching that rainwater. But yeah, so that was the point for me to where I kind of started losing my identity in my career and what I left behind, and kind of started that. And I also had a lot of wives who had been Christian wives for decades to look up to, and kind of I would learn from them. And so I do think the idea of I loved how you said on Sunday that the submission is life-giving because it's so totally backwards. Yep. And but that is the kingdom of God. It's so backwards. Yeah. Yep. And so when we submit to Jesus, we gain eternal life. So if we can do what he's calling us to do and submit to our husbands in the biblical sense, not the
it's
cultural
not domineering.
sense, right? It's not subservient. I have found that our relationship is a little bit more copacetic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
well, that's such a great point you make there, that it's not, you're not, you love Jordan, but you're not submitting to Jordan for Jordan. We are fitting into the roles that God has designed for us. And again, we use this word submit, and really what we're talking about, I love the illustration of a dance. Yeah. That's two people.
He leads, she follows, they both move together.
That's exactly right. Because really, I think that's the best illustration that I've ever heard of that, because so much of the time it just gets such a bad rap, and that's not what we're talking about.
I think the imagery of dance corrects one of the stereotypes about submission. When you think submit, you think this person's over that person, that person's under this person. So the one above tells the one below, you do what I tell you.
That's
so it has the hierarchy kind of vibe to it. Whereas a dance is not a hierarchy, it's two people moving together.
That's right.
So it's a level playing field. And so in Ephesians 5, when we see, wives submit to your husbands, it's there too. But Ephesians, that's 5:22. Ephesians 5:21 says, in fact, remember I mentioned this last week, Ephesians 5:22, the word submit's not even in that.
Right. Yeah, right.
It's in the verse in front of it. It says, submit to one another out of reverence to Christ. And then for the wives, it looks like this, and then husbands looks like that. So submitting is a life-giving reality that Scripture tells us to submit to God. That's the most life-giving thing you can do.
Yeah.
It's to open your hands, let go of all the things you're clutching onto, and let God give you what he wants to give you. It's like, it's an opening of yourself to God and putting yourself under his authority. Right. And when we do it to one another, or a husband to a wife to a husband, however the human relationships work. And at the end of Luke 2, when Jesus is 12 and his parents had lost him in the temple and then found him in the temple, it says after that scene that he went back home and he was submissive to them. So what Jesus did with his parents is what we should do with one another. It's like you yield to the relational authority. If you remove relationships from submission, you get positional submission. It's relational submission, not positional. When it's positional, it becomes dominant. When it's relational, it becomes life-giving. Who but a dad? You submit to a dad because dads can provide things that you need as a kid. Same in the marriage. So it's setting yourself into a posture to receive the best of what you need in the relationship. So.
And the real successful marriages you see are where two folks are trying to outserve one another, outlove one another. Yeah, it's not, what can I get? It's what can I give to this other person. Good. And when both of them are working towards that, that's a successful marriage. So Lindsay, you said something a second ago. I'd love for you to expound a little bit on, if you don't mind. You mentioned having Christian wives who kind of poured into you back when you first accepted Christ. You moved to Turkey. You moved to this land where you didn't know even where it was.
Yeah. Might as well have been.
Talk to me, if you don't mind. I'd love for you to share a little bit about what did that mean for you? What did it mean to have those ladies who poured into you? How did that help you? What was the importance?
How did you draw from it too? Like how?
So it was the first base I'd ever lived on. God is so funny. I just look back and laugh, but we had been married 6 months. While Jordan had been in the Air Force for several years before we got married, I never really had to live the military spouse life, or I had my own life. We were very compartmentalized. If you will.
Interesting. Yeah.
He was doing his career, I was doing my career, and
so you're on the dance floor, just moving around separate.
And honestly, he was working third shift. I had an 8 to 5. We would literally high five as I was walking in from work and he was going out, and it worked. We weren't, it worked for us in an odd way until we moved to Turkey, and we were there. We didn't know anybody. no friends, no mom to run home to,
You kind of just had each
even
other
with
at that
the
point,
time
right?
difference. If we were having a fight, I couldn't call my best friend and complain about
One
what
in
was
the morning.
happening.
3
So
a.m.
we were
Yeah.
kind of forced to.
I bet your friends got some interesting voicemails during that time, right?
Maybe so. So I surrendered to Jesus. I'm learning more about what the Bible says, who Paul is, because we're kind of in the land of Paul.
Yeah.
And so there are not only these biblical women who were spouses, but they were also very seasoned military spouses, and I was brand new. And so the way that they would just speak about their husbands was just countercultural to what that we would used to. Like, so if they got in a fight with their husbands, they would be more biblical about it in a way, like, well, I don't want to slander him. I don't, I want to talk honor, that kind of language. And I'm like,
But that's so countercultural. I mean, you look at every sitcom, every comedy show that there is, it's the bumbling idiot husband and the wife who's long suffering.
Right.
And so that's what we grew up with. And now you're experiencing not that.
And I'm just like, this is weird, but I'm learning. I'm kind of, so it was just the whole 2 years was just very odd, but they did not react to conflict with their spouses the way I had experienced in the past,
well, you expected to.
or expected.
So you kind of learned a new way to fight, a new way to handle that stuff. Yeah.
So that goes back to your comment about the biblical kingdom way is so upside down. It turns out it's actually, like G.K. Chesterton said, the ethics of the kingdom, are so upside down because the world is standing on its head. That's why.
Right.
So it is right side up is what you were saying. These examples
But
of how to
super
handle conflict.
countercultural to what.
And like another thing that I would always think was so weird, because I would just do whatever I wanted. Well, if I want to go to the store, I'm just going to go to the store. If I wanted to do this, I was just, very selfish, and I would just do whatever I wanted to without giving Jordan a thought, really. Just, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And they would say, like, well, we'd plan a dinner, and they'd be like, well, let me check with my husband to make sure that, like, and I would just be like, you have to check with him? Like, just come on, just do what you want.
You're a
So
free
just
woman.
like little subtle things.
But
like
it's not
that.
a permission thing. It's
Right, it's just like out of
mutual
respect,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
and communication thing. Like, out of respect, let me make sure he didn't have plans, and where
There's
I'd be
that
like,
R
well, I don't
word.
care about his plans. I'm
respect?
going.
That's a big word. You'll win them
Yeah.
with that every time.
That's
So
exactly right.
anyway, that's kind of where the ground kind of broke open for me, if you will.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I think it's such a great point, though, about how you had that community of Christian and military wives that were pouring into you, and it's funny because I know something you are continuing to do that today. You are passing that on. So talk to me a little bit about what you and Emily have started.
Okay, yeah. So Emily Alderman, she's our student resident. She's a military spouse. Her husband is in the Marines,
Right.
And she has just had it on her heart to start a military wives ministry called Brave at Heart. I'm plugging you, Emily. She's like, I'm not ready to
Sounds great.
launch yet, but we're launching. So it's going to be called Brave at Heart, but we have invited just military spouses around the community. So the river region, not just Von Forest military spouses.
Of course.
But we've started a Bible study, women's Bible study here. It's every other Wednesday. They're meeting tomorrow. So if anybody catches this, it comes out tomorrow morning. So sign up, come and enjoy it. But she just has it on her heart to invite that community in because we do have a lot of weird things that happen in our lives that nobody else really understands. Yep. So it's a very sweet community to come into. And so, we're doing that. We had our first one a couple weeks ago, and it was so sweet. There was just 5 military wives, but it was precious, and the conversation is so relatable. We all have the same frustrations. We all have the same fears. We're all going through the same stuff, and we all can understand the perspective. So it's super healthy, super fun, super sweet.
I just think it's great how you experienced that, and now you and Emily are replicating that. You're pouring that back into the lake. So remind me, it meets every other Wednesday.
Every other Wednesday. So tomorrow. So
or today.
Or today.
Yes.
So and it's from 9:30 to 11, 9 to
9:30.
11.
Okay, 9 to 11. Up here at Vaughn Forest.
And childcare is provided.
Childcare is provided.
Yes.
But I think, from a broader perspective, this speaks to, once again, the importance of community, right? That God has designed us to be in community with one another,
That's right.
to help one another. Because again, even in our marriages, like, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to older men in the faith going, hey, this is happening.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with this. And they're like, you idiot. You handled that 100% the wrong way.
They roll up the newspaper.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
And they're right to. They're
Yeah,
right
exactly.
to. And they're like, if you'd have called me before you said that stupid thing, you wouldn't be quite, where you're at now. But I think, again, it's a great reminder. We do life together. We have opportunities for that because we want to provide that community where younger folks, less experienced, more mature believers, and not necessarily age, but you know what I'm saying in terms of maturity.
Yep.
And again, I'm going to go back to it and plug it once more. Our marriage mentors. Let's talk about that a little bit, Jim, about the importance of that.
So for Rose and I, we were both from unchurched backgrounds, so we did not have any kind of a biblical understanding of anything. So at the age of 22, it was June of 1990. Do the math. So we got married in June, and then I came to Christ in September, and she came to Christ in November. So suddenly we're married. That's life
Big
changing.
change, yeah.
Then I come to Christ, and she does. So suddenly we're a Christian married couple.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about this, and we were helped. Yeah, we had Bibles. We went to church. It was all good, but we were helped by people who were living out what we didn't know how to do. And so we didn't even. It's not like we said, we need a couple. We just met people who took an interest in us, and they automatically started to just come alongside us.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where suddenly you have an arm around your shoulder, and you realize, wow, we're being helped by this. In fact, we're doing a conference this weekend, right? At our location here at our church, and it's the Lisa Turkhurst conference. And so a friend of ours is coming from Illinois to come down to be with Rose to go through that.
Oh, cool.
This is one of the couples that originally put their arm around us. We've known them forever.
That's so cool.
So it's just one of those things we didn't know what we didn't know, and we didn't know that mentoring is the way to go. So it's not marriage counseling, and it's not like some formal official thing.
Right.
It's just a couple who comes alongside a couple to just walk together, to share the lessons that you've learned. It was so life-giving. So they looked at us and they were just like, man, you're doing it all wrong, because we were blowing up left and right. We're like sparks all over the place. And they just saw and just helped us with advice, with prayer. They would one-off us once in a while, take us offline, like, hey, you're new at this, aren't you? It was like, it was so incredibly helpful to have their example, to get their advice, to get some accountability, to have them draw our attention to things that we weren't aware of in our lives, in the Bible. It was just good all around.
That's a biblical model. You
That's
walk
exactly right.
with someone. Again, I know the phrase, we're doing life together. Like, that gets kind of made fun of a lot, these days. But you are walking with them. That's a very biblical model.
That's exactly right.
I think that's so
super
good.
powerful.
So on Sunday, you said over and over and over again in Scripture, the wives are spoken about first. Ladies first, right?
Ladies first.
So you said it's impossible for husbands to lead without a wife submitting to Jesus. So what does a wife who submits to Jesus look like, and how does her doing that spark the husband to want to be the leader?
Well, husband I can speak as one, 34 years running. Husband are like cavemen. So our bandwidth and our vocabulary and all of that is limited, right? Women have a whole lot more to offer there. So we need help, lots and lots of help. So in Genesis 2:18, when God puts the first married couple together, first you have Adam, and then when he makes Eve, he's like, I'm going to make a helper, because you're going to need a helper. So help. We need help.
Right.
The wife brings help. Doesn't mean that the husband doesn't help. We help each other. We clearly do. But there's something about the wife can bring a help element that the guy needs, really needs. So somehow in God's good creation, so nothing was bad yet, in God's good creation, the marriage does a helpful, there's a helpful dynamic there that the wife brings that the husband needs. I think our marriage is at its worst when I forget that I need help. When I forget that she's there to help. When I forget that what she's trying to do is trying to be helpful. When all that gets lost, that's when it's not great. Yeah. So the wife submitting to, so the basic idea of like, why does the Scripture speak to the woman? I feel like McFly over here isn't getting it. He needs more than he can realize. So we're going to go ahead and talk to the ones who get it. So you have a bandwidth, you have a tool set, you have a sensitivity toward relationships and being able to be helpful. Let's go ahead and talk to you first. So I think there's just my read, and it's a guess, but I think it's God speaking to the answer, and the problems over here are like a little more on the Neanderthal. And I'm just jazzing every husband saying, for me, when God speaks to my wife and then she operates with me from that, it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And so sometimes he speaks to me, I mean, a lot, and then we do that, but I don't know, man. There's just something about when God speaks to the woman first. Again, I always go back to Genesis. After the fall, when all hell breaks loose, God goes and talks to the man first. I'm like, whoa, hold up. She did it. Why are we doing this? It's like, well, your role, you're responsible for the thing. Now, she's responsible to help. So we're getting there. I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
So I always backed up with, so God approaches the guy first when he did not start this. He just was disengaged. He let this happen. That's his problem.
Right.
He let it happen. Her side of it was she fell into it, and then, so it's like just the roles. One of the issues with roles in marriage from a biblical perspective is we have a tendency to turn roles into rules. You can only do that role. You can't do my role. I got to do it. So it's very discreet, and they never overlap. It's like, not really. She's supposed to bring the helpful side, and he's supposed to too.
Right.
She's supposed to submit, but we submit to one another. There's a lot more dance than we think.
Yeah.
But I do believe God speaks to the woman first because it probably get done that way, just in my opinion.
It's interesting there as you're talking about, the whole, like, why did God go speak to the man? I'm just reminded.
I don't like it.
Yeah. But I'm reminded about what Paul talks, Paul doesn't say just as through Eve. So, he talks about the whole idea of like
That's
Christ,
right.
the true and better Adam,
Right.
it's not her, it's him. It's the sin entered this way. And then, but obviously we've been
We usually
through Christ.
refer to an Adamic fall.
Right,
Not
exactly.
Edenic or
Edenic,
Edenic or however.
yeah. So I think this idea of God speaking to the woman, it's important. And we talked about being a helpful wife.
Yeah.
And we said that a helpful wife, and I'm going to read these because I want to get it right. It says, is her husband's supporter, motivator, and admirer.
Yep.
So I want to unpack why these are so important because, like, on the surface, like, dudes sound really needy, right? Like, it sounds like we're super insecure. So is that true? Are dudes just insecure? Why do guys need all this, and why is it so important for the wives to fill that role for their husbands?
I don't think it's insecure. I would just say it's a God-given need, and a God-given need must be met with the God-given means. And the God-given means of his sense of like, you can do things in this world. First of all, it comes from the dad early, and we just know that.
Right.
But it comes from the wife because in Genesis 2:24, he leaves the father and the mother, and he's joined to his wife.
Right.
So the primary, voicing that the father did from a shaping side, that changes now. It becomes different. Now his primary relationship is to his wife. So she has a voice in his life about his adequacy, about what he can do, about what God's called him to do. That's just tremendous. So
Right.
So it's a God-given need. It's not like he's got some sort of like disorder.
Sure.
Oh, you got this disorder, and here's the cure for the. No, it's not. This is a God-given need.
Right.
You need someone to cheer you on. That's what she's for.
Right.
You need someone to support your leadership, help you grow, to help you learn to love, to help you learn all the things you need to learn. Marriage is the primary locus of your discipleship. It's not in a class. It's not in a group. It's in your marriage. That's the primary place where we live out the Christian life.
Yeah.
We'll talk about next week in the message. We're going to talk about the D word, and we're going to look at, if you want to transform your marriage, apply basic Christianity to your marriage, and you will not have many of the challenges that you have.
Yeah.
And so,
And it's so simple, and it makes so much
too
sense.
simple.
Yeah.
It's just so basic, but we mess it up.
Yeah. Yeah, and none of us do that perfectly, but again, I would love to get your perspective. So, again, like I know in my relationship, when Christy tells me like, "Hey, good job," or "Hey, I saw that you did that. Hey, you didn't totally screw that up."
Your tail starts
Yeah,
wagging.
yeah. Like it means the world. I mean,
absolutely.
literally,
Yeah.
there's no one's opinion that matters more to me on this earth than my wife's. Like that, my kids
That
are a
is
very
right.
close second, but my wife's is number one.
Yep.
So when she comes up, "Hey, good job with the message," or when I get the chance to preach, or "Hey, I saw you did this." So I guess I would love to hear your opinion, Lindsay. What are some ways that you feel like women can show that support? They can show that encouragement to their husbands, and I would love to get your thoughts on that.
So I would say if you're stuck in a hard place, or just I think most women have been in the place where just everything their husband does annoys them, like
Farts, burps,
everything, how they
scratching,
breathing,
how they chew their chips,
with their mouth open.
everything, and you just are like, ugh.
Sure.
So I would remind yourself that they too are made in the image of God, that they too are made in his image, just like we are. And so I think I have had to remind myself of that. I love you, Jordan. I promise I do. But, because we are two imperfect people.
That's exactly
and,
right. That's right.
But we are both made in the image of God. And if we're both image bearers, then we can have grace for each other.
Yeah.
And I think, so if you're in a place where you're like, everything he does, I can't even get to that place because I'm so annoyed by him. Let the hardening of your heart soften just a little bit. And just, even if you don't want to say the words of or praise him, do it anyway. Because when you do start practicing that, and it might be practice at first, it will turn into something genuine, I think. So
what a great reminder to focus on who unites you rather than what it is that is dividing you. I mean, and what you talked about there, Christy, she's great about this. Words of affection are my love language. And so every now and then I'll have a note waiting for me, by my sink in the bathroom or something like that. I've never thrown one of them. I have them for the last 18 plus years.
Wow,
yes,
that's incredible.
because they mean that.
I'm like, wow, that's great.
Right.
So awesome.
Right. But they mean that much to me. And
That's
but I think your point there about, because we all hit those times where, it feels like you can't see it. There is a 12-foot barrier between us and our spouse, right?
Right.
And you're not going to be the one to work at chipping it away. But when we look at who it is that has brought us together, when we focus on Christ, I like what you said. I think it warms up that ice a little bit. I think it kind of starts to chip away at that because, goodness gracious, we've had times in our marriage where it's been that way, where it's just like you're not talking to each other, you're going to bed angry, and that's not God's design. Yeah.
Yeah. So rather than seeing the frame as an insecurity frame, it's an intimacy frame. So when we say the right word, where are we going to say these words? In our core relationship in life, our marriage. That's where we learn to be affirming and admire of one another, respecter. I mean, that's the appropriate place to let those things flow. But when we run into these frustrations and stuff, they stop. And then, so I love what you were saying, Lindsay, because I feel like the basic path of emotional intelligence is to recognize your emotion in the moment. I am really frustrated with this person right now. Like if I hear another, I'm just going to go ahead and walk out of the room. Being able to catch that and not just be annoyed and then from an annoyed place do things. And it's just catching things like that and recognizing it's okay to be annoyed by your spouse. Know it, deal with it, get up, walk, do whatever you got to do, but don't let it become a sliver. Because slivers don't go away. They fester and they become other things. Right. And you just got to, like emotional intelligence, name that, notice that emotion, name that emotion, and deal with that emotion.
And sometimes it's not just little things that annoy you. Like there are legitimate reasons to be pissed off at your spouse.
Sure.
That happens. Right. But what
Chad said pissed.
I did. But the thing that we always try to remember that we've talked about before, and I don't get this right, even most of the time or even half of the time, is that it's not about winning. It's about resolution. It's about restoring the relationship. It's about bringing healing back to your marriage. Not and it's not about me going, well, you were wrong and here's why. Now, the one that gets me is when I'm pissed off and she apologizes and I still want to be mad. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the one where I'm like, dang it. And so that more than anything, is where I'm like, now she's not wrong very much. Normally I'm the one that's incredibly wrong. But I love what you said there. Don't let those little splinters start to fester, work at that resolution.
That's exactly
that's so
right.
good.
Yeah. So we talked about Proverbs a lot. You went into the ugly wife.
I did.
What was your exact quote? Something about some barn doors need more paint than others?
Well, I was talking about cosmetics, adorning and stuff. But
that was not a biblical proverb.
That's
but
right. I liked it, though.
Yeah. So Proverbs does describe the beautiful wife, the good wife, but also there's stuff in there that's not pretty.
Ugly stuff.
But you followed up, why are there ugly wives? And you said oftentimes the way we feel on the inside is what makes us feel ugly, and it comes out on the outside. So how can our ugly be turned into something beautiful? And is that through just self-awareness, sanctification, or just something else completely?
So I'm going to pick a person that I know. You don't know this person. You've never met them. They don't live here. So this is a person that I know. She was a wife, is no longer. She burned her house down with her own hands. I watched her do it. So this is a woman who tore it all down with her own hands. This is what I would say to her. You have experienced ugly things. And she would be able to give you the list, and we would begin to be saddened and overwhelmed with emotion by that list. She experienced ugly things. She internalized those ugly things, and they became motivators for just a pattern of behavior that when she was frustrated by a person or didn't like something, it would turn really ugly fast. So in her alphabet emotionally, there was A and there was Z. There was nothing in the middle. She would go from sitting there to all of a sudden saying at a tone and a volume like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
She had a store. She kept all that ugly stuff inside. So if I were talking to her, I would say, hey, you need to get in touch with the specific ugly things that you've experienced. You need to get those ugly things into a process, bringing them before God, bringing them before another person who can help you, maybe a counselor or a pastor or a small group or someone who can help you begin to walk through those ugly things one at a time so that in the dark they stay ugly, but bringing them into the light, they can change and they can become more beautified in the presence of God. Because in doing that, because here's a person who just can't be happy. Cannot, even now manipulating all kinds of things and is not happy. Manipulates everything and is not happy. So ugly things happen, but she doesn't know what to do with them. So they just live there. So it's just like unpacking the bag, looking at the ugly garments, bringing them out into the light, and then just sort of letting them be something that's outside of her own heart and something she can work through with some people so that it can be transformed. Yeah. Because in the presence of God under the gospel, ugly things become beautiful things. That's Isaiah 61, right? That God turns, the ashes of things into beautiful things. God makes us beautiful. I'm not a change maker. Your husband's not a change maker. A new relationship, the next job, the only change maker is God himself. That's He's the only one who can transform us. So taking those ugly things and getting them out is a great step forward because here's a person that literally burned their life down and is still doing it and it hasn't slowed up.
And again, a great reminder that God has given us one another to kind of help in that process. Not that we can do it, only God can, but we have that, we have each other to kind of.
I'm not the change maker, but I can point to the change maker. It can be an example of the change maker. I can be an agent of the change maker, but I'm not a change maker.
Right.
That's so good. So, as we kind of wrap up today, Lindsay, I'd love we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, the unique challenges that you have faced as a military wife. And I know that we have a lot of folks that tune in to the Other Six podcasts that either are military wives, they have a military wife in their family, they're a friend of a military wife. You mentioned Jordan being in Korea for like a year. I would love to unpack with you a little bit some of the unique challenges that you have faced as a military wife and how this idea of being Mrs. Right, because you are Jordan's Mrs. Right, like how has that, played into that? What are some lessons that you've learned in that time?
So challenge-wise, I think a big one is obviously we move a lot, and that is often to places where we can't point to on a map, or places people just don't want to go. Like who wants to go to Minot, North Dakota? Nobody wants to live there.
I had a church call me from Minot one time saying, "Hey, we got your thing from Woody Bible Institute. We think you're our guy." I'm like, "You need to check Colorado."
No.
Jim's
nobody
like,
wants to
no
go.
obligation.
Right.
No.
So oftentimes we were moving to places, and it's not only affecting your marriage, but you have kids. You're, in tow too, and that's stressful. So that can be hard on your marriage. But the time we spend apart. So Jordan and I have been married 14 years, and I believe out of the 14 years, if I'm doing the math right, somewhere around 4 years we have not lived together.
Wow.
So that, and how do you have a dance partner when you're not living together? And so that disconnect is tough. And again, thankfully, we never spent a deployment where I wasn't a believer because I don't know how I would have done that otherwise. So I'm very, very grateful for that. But what nobody talks about is actually the reintegration process. So when they're gone for a year or 7 months or however long, it is very awkward for them to come back into your space.
I can see that.
Yeah,
Hey,
and nobody talks about it.
You develop your habits.
We don't, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, especially when there's kids involved, because you're like, oh, well, when you left, we were disciplining that way, but we don't discipline like that
we got
anymore.
a better way
yeah,
now.
like, yeah. So you're just like, you're messing everything up, or like, and so it's hard.
And I'm sure there might be a little resentment as
Yes,
well
there
that you've been
is.
gone.
Yeah. And so,
Must
and
have
that,
been nice. Yeah.
yeah, and that is like, it's actually your mother-in-law and I have talked about it, because the last deployment Jordan went on, I went up to her at one of the vintage lunches and I was like, Miss Deborah, did you ever get mad at Mr. Norm for just being gone, even though it wasn't his fault? And like, you signed up for this because you married him and you knew you're going to have to. She was like, yes, honey. Like, yes.
Oh,
And so, I mean, and you do have resentment because they're gone, even though it's not their fault that they're gone, but it is their fault that they're gone because they chose to serve in the military. It is a complex emotional state.
Whether it makes sense or not, it's a complex emotional state.
But again, he's created in the image of God, and what kind of I pull myself back, there is no doubt in my mind that my husband was meant to serve our country. And so that it's taken me a long time to get to that point where I've been like, okay, well, this is God's plan. And I'm, how lucky am I that I just get to be a part of it? And so, yes, I cry. Yes, it's not easy. That is a huge struggle. But there is beauty in it. And so another thing, like let's talk about lessons I've learned. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Martin Luther, did he say, I know, y'all are nervous now, I can tell. I'm just kidding. Did he say something like the sin of idolatry is, the behavioral sin can be traced to idolatry of sin.
It's a huge Reformation concept. Calvin,
so,
for sure,
and so they can kind of get to like 4 root idols, if you will. I think it's control, power, approval, and comfort, I believe. So I'm a control idol. So everything I do, like even when Kendall and I are working together and she's like, Lindsay, don't do that, or like, and I'm like, no, it's my control idol. And so we kind of joke about that. But that is something that I have had to work through. And I think a lot of women struggle with a control idol, if we were being honest with ourselves.
Sure, yeah.
I would agree.
And so once that was pointed out to me, like, hey, you struggle with control, then I'm a problem solver. Like by nature, by degree, like I solve problems. And so now it's always in the back of my head. It's your control idol. And God does have a sense of humor because he's like, you are a type A person, you're wired a certain way. So you're going to fall in love with a man who's going to serve his country for 20 years and have fun with that. And so, and
Jordan's like one of the most chill dudes I know.
He's so chill. He is so laid back, and that's why we're perfect for each other. But the military has really broken me down because you really have no control over where you're going to live, where you're going to raise your kids, that kind of stuff. But within the marriage, the controlling of, again, well, you don't do that right. Well, you loaded the dishwasher like that, and that's not going to wash it best. I used to be that wife.
Wow.
Some
wives would go, he loaded the dishwasher? How do I get my head?
Well, that's another thing about gender roles that I've learned. We can talk about gender roles. And because I have had to be Mr. Right and Mrs. Right, and I have had to be mom, and I've had to be dad for extended periods of time, not just like a week or two, but for months and months and months. Gender roles is another huge thing, and it works well in our house. Like I will sometimes mow the lawn. Like if I know he's stressed at work and I pull up into our driveway and the lawn needs to be mowed, I just get out and do it. And so because I know that's going to be helpful. Whereas if he knows, if I'm on the phone, like the kids are driving me crazy, the house is a wreck, and he walks in and he knows I'm already stressed and feeling it, and he sees the load of laundry that needs to be folded, he just starts folding it. And so like I think our culture has identified the gender roles, and I think because we have been forced, I have been forced to fix the garbage disposal, to take out the trash, to like do
life
all
doesn't stop happening when your husband's deployed, right?
And so now I just do it if I know that he's and where I used to do it with resentment, even if he was at the house, well, he's supposed to, this is a boy job. He should take out the trash, but he's already in bed. And he should know that it's Tuesday, Now I just do it and without any resentment. So it's just.
So what I hear you saying is a lot of the same struggles that every woman has, in being Mrs. Right. They just manifest maybe in some different ways when you have a military spouse.
Yeah. Right.
And so really, I think kind of what I hear you saying is that all of these points kind of boil down to, everything that we've talked about here remains true. Military, non-military.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
it all remains true.
Right.
But, it is interesting hearing some of the unique challenges that you faced and how the Lord's kind of brought you through that. 'Cause
Yeah,
again,
absolutely.
I mean, if my wife was going for, dude, our house would fall apart. Like it would
Yeah.
be.
We've had some seasons transitioning between places where it's like for a month I'm here, whatever, but that's not extended like that.
But I love that you guys are you have this Bible study, this ministry for military wives,
for sure.
and then again from a broader perspective, we have all kinds of women's studies, marriage groups, those kinds of things to kind of help in this task. Well, this has been an incredible conversation talking Ms. Wright and Lindsay. Thank you so much for joining us today. Because otherwise, Jim and I would have been sitting in here going like, we still don't know.
Or the other way, you got two big experts here.
Yeah. They clearly have no idea what they're talking about. So I appreciate you taking the time and sharing about your life and your awesome relationships. And it's so encouraging to hear all the Lord has done in your life and brought you guys through, and to see how God's using you guys, to further His kingdom. Here at Vaughn Forest Church, it's just so exciting. And so thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely. Well, and we want to say thank you for joining us today here at Vaughn Forest Church. Jim, we'll be here at Vaughn Forest Church here on the Other Six podcast. Sorry, I went into host mode there.
That's okay.
We're going to be talking about the D word this Sunday. Is that right?
We are.
Can you give us a little preview?
Yep. So the D word, we're talking about divorce. So I think what we're going to do, it's like Tuesday, you better know. Yeah. I think we're going to look at some questions like is divorce beneficial? Because some are like, hey, we need to do this. It'd be better for the family to do this. And then is divorce unpardonable? And then is divorce preventable? Those are the things that we're going to kind of look at.
That's good.
And so one parting shot for today, I looked at some research the other day, and they looked at couples that have longevity and success in marriage, and they asked, they did a big I forgot who did the survey, but they've what's the one thing that successful long-term couples would point to? And it was a question. Successful long-term couples tend to ask some version of this question to each other. Here it is. How can I make your day better? Believe it or not, that's a constant, frequent question. It's a question along the line, how can I make your day better? How can I help you today? So when you get lost in the big tone of the season that we're in emotionally or whatever life is doing to us, shrink it down to this moment and say, how can I make this day better for you? If that's our posture, man, because what do we have? We have the present. We don't have all that other stuff. We can't control past or future, but we can certainly help each other today. So
how can I make your day better?
Yeah.
And on that note, we will wrap up the podcast today. So again, thank you for that. And guys, thank y'all for the conversation. And again, thank you for joining us here today. On behalf of Jim Botts, Lindsay Layton, sound guy Jonathan, and myself, thanks for being here. We will catch you guys next time.